Hi there everybody, welcome back to This DIY Mom Life. My name is Kendra and today I am so excited to be talking about sock needles with you. Now a few months ago I did a little video review of a few different common types of sock needles of magic loop. However, today I'm going to kind of focus on different styles of sock knitting, and I'm really going to focus on 9-inch circular and the Addi Flexi Flip or CraSyTrio needles, but I'm going to touch on using magic loop and DPNs as well. So let's jump into the video. So before we talk specifics, I thought we'd kind of jump in and just share a little bit about the different options in case you are a new knitter. And if you are experienced, feel free to skip ahead or else share your experience in the comments so that others can read about your favorite styles or pros and cons to each. So I think in the past, most people who knit socks use double pointed needles. And by that you would use 4 or 5. This was a set I bought when I first started knitting and I wanted to knit socks. I had actually read online about 9-inch circulars. So I went to my local yarn store and they were not aware of like the small circumference needles, and instead they sold me a pair of double pointed needles and said they would be my best option. So I feel like we've kind of come away from that maybe. There are certainly people who still use DPNs as their preferred source or way of knitting socks. However, there's a lot of other options, and certainly more than there were in the past. Double pointed needles are great for anything with a small circumference because you can use 3 or 4 of the needles to make that circle, and then you just knit one needle at a time with the extra needle. So going into this, I would say I know that this has been my least favorite type of knitting socks or knitting any kind of small circumference. However, it's just some of it comes down to personal preference and just the way that you both probably learned how to knit and enjoy knitting. So it seems a lot of people do like to knit magic loop socks. I have just pulled one needle here. This is the Hiya Sharp, and it has the long flexible cord, and you can use the magic loop method to have a sock on your needle and knit the front and then pull the cord around and knit the back. And you just kind of keep going around in that method. Magic loop is a great option for small circumference knitting, and you can find all sorts of needles in a variety of sizes and a variety of cord types depending on brand. And again, if you're interested in my previous comparison, I will make sure to link it down in the description and in the cards. With magic loop, you are able to knit one sock at a time. You can knit 2 socks at a time on one needle. You can use 2 magic loop needles to knit 1 sock at a time, or you can use 2 magic loop needles to knit 2 socks at a time. So there's a variety of ways, and people kind of find their sweet spot of what they prefer. So I would say between the DPNs and the magic loop, that has been the most popular ways, at least as far as I know, of knitting socks. However, there's been a big increase in people sharing about or using 9-inch circular needles as well as these new Flexi Flips. So I'll show them both to you, and then I'm going to give a comparison between the two and comparing them to the other methods. So you can see all these needles here, they look quite similar. However, the way you use them is quite different. With the 9-inch circular, you just need the one circular needle as you go through your sock, and really once you get the hang of it, and again there's some challenges getting to that point, you just zoom around and around. There's no joins, there's no pulling of the cable, it's just literally the circle that you go around. With the CraSyTrio Addis, they are more like a DPN, however you only have the 3 needles, and they honestly look a lot like a 9-inch circular needle with the cord in the middle. However, the tips are quite a bit longer, and that can make it more comfortable when you're knitting. And using it with the cord means that you have that kind of circular shape, and you use that 3rd needle to do the front and the back, similar to if it was a magic loop. However, they are separate. Probably the biggest complaint I've heard about using the 9-inch circular is that people find their hands cramp. And that's because when you're using a typical needle, the needle length is quite long. So depending on how you hold your needles, your whole hand is able to grab on, whether that's your pinky that you're leveraging or how, again, there's lots of different methods that people use, but there's a way to get your whole hand on this length of needle. Now, when you're looking at the teeny tiny little tips on a 9-inch circular, you really do need to readjust because it is just fingertips. I mean, you can try to rest them on there, but you have zero leverage from your pinkies or from, you know, the smaller fingers to be able to do your knitting. And so I tried to go into it with an open mind and think that it's just a readjustment. And again, if you're really set in your knitting style, this may be more hard. Or if your hands are extra sensitive, totally understand that. But I found that once I kind of slowed down and stopped trying to grab with my pinkies, my hands became a lot kind of looser and more comfortable, and I didn't have any hand cramping or problems. There are some similarities with the Flexi Flips, and I would say that again, it wouldn't mean that if you find the 9-inch circulars to cramp your hands, these might not be the same. It's just a middle ground, and so it just kind of depends again on how you hold your needle, and just in comparing them, it really is the middle point, and so it just depends how you're holding it, whether it is going to be okay for you or not. Certainly one benefit to the 9-inch circular is that you don't have to be switching between needles, which means you just don't lose stitches. At least I don't or didn't in the same way. I'm really not used to using DPNs, I'm used to magic loop, but I did find it easy to not pay attention to that back needle because these long tips would be kind of sticking everywhere, and if they were to slide, then a needle would pop off the end. And that may be something the more you practice, or if you're coming from DPNs, you may not notice as much, but I certainly did in trying them out. So right now, as I'm sitting here talking with you, I have finished one sock with the 9-inch circulars and one with the Flexi Flips. I wanted to do that so that I went through a whole sock to have a little bit of background, but then I also want to film a little of knitting the second sock so that I can show you those points of interest and what I'm talking about right now. So a few biggest things to me that I noticed while knitting these, and things that I would want to know before I purchase them, is that the 9-inch circular is much less expensive than the Flexi Flips, and I'm not sure if that's because there's 3 needles or because Addi's are just more expensive. This is a Chiago needle, and these are, like I said, Addi. This one ran me about $10 and these were about $30, which is way more than I would usually spend on a single needle. And again, you are getting the 3 in there, but I'm not sure that it's worth the increase of price, although it is a really kind of new and interesting method that, you know, is worth trying out if you don't mind spending the money. Also, in knitting the socks, with using the 9-inch circular, you are unable to cast on just using that one, at least doing toe-up socks. And I will say that for both of the socks I knit using these needles, I did toe-up with a fish lips kiss heel, and that's how I usually knit my socks, and so I thought I'd stick with the same just to give a better point of comparison. But yeah, with the 9-inch circulars, you do need to cast on your stitches for toe up and then transfer it onto the 9-inch circular, because you're not able to do any smaller than the amount of needles that it holds at this size. So when you're building your toe, you use another needle, more like a magic loop, DPN, or the Flexi Flips, and then transfer it onto the 9-inch circular. Also, when it came time to do the heel, like I said, fish lips kiss heel, I did not do the whole heel using the Flexi Flips. I found it really uncomfortable, and just with one, you would think it would work just fine, but with one needle holding the back stitches and then with the other one working the front, I wasn't able to do it just with that. I actually ended up using the 9-inch circular as an additional. Now, I know people are able to knit a whole sock on the Flexi Flips, and there's videos out there for it. I'll try to capture what I mean here and insert it so that you can understand my trouble with it. But that was definitely a drawback, the fact that it didn't kind of seamlessly go into my preferred method of knitting. I know heel flap and gusset, I think, is what it said on the Addi instructions, and so again, there's ways to do it, but it was kind of disappointing I wasn't able to do it comfortably with my usual method. So both of these needles are kind of new and fun, and certainly a difference from using DPNs or magic loop. I definitely think they're worth trying out if you knit a lot of socks and are looking for new techniques. I will say they both may require a little bit of change from you as a knitter, and again, whether that's how you hold your hands or paying attention to the back needles as it's kind of slipping around, then yeah, if you're willing to do that, you might be able to find something you love even better. But I would say there's definitely a learning curve, and yeah, you just kind of have to be willing to work with it. So those are my initial thoughts here. Please let me know in the comments if you have tried out either of these needles or what your preferred method is. I really find it so interesting. I have always loved doing 2 at a time toe up with one needle, and I find it interesting when people say they just hate that method or they have something that they prefer more. Now, it's kind of too soon to say whether either of these will replace that for me. I can't see it being so, but I definitely see the appeal of having a sock on a 9-inch circular that you can bring somewhere and then it's just plain stockinette when you really don't even want to look at it for a second to pull the cable or anything. You can just go. So I think that could end up being faster, and there's benefits there. But yeah, just let me know what you prefer. Knitting really is so personal. It's something that you spend so much time doing and you want something that you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please subscribe. And if you have any suggestions of other needles or reviews or products that you'd like me to try out, let me know and I'll see if I can make that happen. Thanks.